Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න. Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න.
අතේ තියෙන බජට් එකට සන්ලයිට් බජට් කැටේ රුපියල් 100ක් පමණයි.
හරිම සුළුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Friday the 23rd of December 2022. Discrepancy no more. Finance Ministry announces host of reforms to curb on income and expense discrepancy of the country. No room for corruption. Justice Minister proposes the establishment of Procurement Commission and a National Audit Commission to probe corruptions.
To prevent corruptions and bribery, we are going to enact laws. We have already enacted a series of laws.
Bright days ahead. Sri Lanka cricket has a bright future, says former head coach of Sri Lanka cricket, Mickey Arthur.
That's what Sri Lanka always does, is provides the world with some very skillful cricketers.
You think these young players can make a change?
Yeah, I think they can, without a doubt.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Andrew Bernard. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. Now, the Ministry of Finance said today that the country has made reforms in order to increase the revenue earned by Sri Lanka next year to counter a discrepancy of 9 billion rupees between revenue earned and expenses incurred. Officials of the Ministry of Finance said that even though they expect these revenue to be raised through the new reforms, the expenses of the country currently cannot be reduced simultaneously as it is fixed.
අපිට සාමාන්‍යයෙන් මාසයකට ඇවරේජ් ඉන්කම් එකක් හම්බ වෙනවා බිලියන 145ක් විතර වගේ. හැබැයි බලන්න වියදම. අපිට පඩි ගෙවන්න යනවා බිලියන 93ක්. පෙන්ෂන් ගෙවන්න යනවා බිලියන 27ක්. සමෘද්ධි පේමන්ට්ස් වලට බිලියන 6ක් යනවා. ඒ ආදී වශයෙන් අනිත් සමාජ සුදු සාධනයට යනවා සෑහෙන ප්‍රමාණයක්. ඒ ටික විතරක් එකතු කරපුවාම කැපිටල් එක්ස්පෙන්ඩිචර් බිලියන 11ක් විතර වගේ දාලා එකතු කරපුවාම අපේ ඒ ටික විතරක් කරන්න වියදමක් යනවා බිලියන 157ක්. අපිට ආදායමක් විතර හම්බෙන්නේ බිලියන 145ක් ඔන්න ඇවරේජ්. එතකොට ඒ ටිකටත් අපිට ණය ගන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා. මෙතනදී පොලිය ගෙවන්න ණය ආපසු ගෙවන්න සහ අනිකුත් වියදම් කරන්න වියදම නැතුව තමයි මේ තියෙන්නේ. ඒ තරම් දරුණු මට්ටමක තමයි රටේ රාජ්‍ය මූල්‍ය අංශයේ රාජ්‍ය මූල්‍ය තත්ත්වය තියෙන්නේ. මේ පසුබිමුට තමයි අපි ආදායම් වැඩි කරගන්න සහ වියදම් අඩු කරන රාජ්‍ය මූල්‍ය අංශයේ ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණ ඇති කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඇත්තටම මෙතනදී මට හයිලයිට් කරන එක දෙයක් තමයි ආදායම් එකපාරම වැඩි කරගෙන ගත්තා වගේම හැබැයි වියදම එකපාරම අඩු කරන්න බෑ. ඒක රිජිඩ් විශේෂයෙන්ම බජට් එක දිහා ගත්තාම අපිට සැලරිස් ගෙවන්න තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම පෙන්ෂන්ස් ගෙවන්න තියෙනවා. ඒත් එක්කම විශේෂ මේ ක්‍රයිසිස් එක වෙලාවේදී දීලිඳු සහ වඩන බල කට්ටිය බලා ගැනීම සඳහා රජයට යම්කිසි සෑහෙන ප්‍රමාණයක් මුදල් වියදම් කරන්න සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙනවා.
ආර්ථික ගත්තාම අඩියටම වැටලා තියෙන අවස්ථාවේ සියලුම රිෆෝම් කරන්න හොඳම අවස්ථාව තමයි මේ අවස්ථාව කියලා. පුද්ගල ආදායම් බද්ද වෙනස් කරා. අපි පුද්ගල ආදායම් බද්ද එක වැටුප් කාණ්ඩයන් අනුව එයාගේ ඒ වගේම මේ ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණයෙන් withholding tax ඒ කියන්නේ රඳවා ගැනීමේ බදුත් හඳුන්වා දුන්නා. ඩිවිඩන්ඩ්ස් වලට ලාභාංශ වලට 15%කුත් පොලියට 5%කුත් කුලී ගෙවනවා නම් 10%ක්. හැබැයි එතන තියෙන threshold එකක් ලක්ෂයට වඩා වැඩි නම් කියන එක. ඒ වගේම අපි මොකක් හරි සේවා පේමන්ට් එකක් ගන්නවා නම් ඒත් එතන ලක්ෂයට වඩා වැඩි නම් 5%යි. අනිත් ඒවායේ 14%යි. සංස්ථාපිත ආදායම් බද්ද ගත්තාම ඒ කියන්නේ කෝපරේට් ඉන්කම් ටැක්ස් ගත්තාම හැම ක්ෂේත්‍රයකම 30% බද්දක් හඳුන්වලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම betting and gaming, liquor, tobacco වලට 40%ක ඉහළ ටැක්ස් එකක් තියෙනවා. සම්මත බදු අනුපාතය 30%යි. funds ඒ කියන්නේ EPF, ETF වගේ නම් 14%යි. ඒ කියන්නේ SME, export, IT industry, agro processing, education, tourism, construction, healthcare වලට 30%යි. manufacturing වල 30%යි. ඒ වගේම ලබන අවුරුද්ද ජනවාරි 1 වෙනිදා සිට ක්‍රියාත්මක වන පරිදි betting and gaming levy සංශෝධනය කරනවා. ඒ අනුව annual levy එක රුපියල් මිලියන 200 සිට 500 දක්වා වැඩි කරනවා.
Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe stresses that all political parties should unite to fulfill their moral responsibility for the country, sidelining the traditional political system of trying to grab power at the next election by palming off all the responsibilities on the government. Addressing the progress meeting of the Food Security District Program, the President assured his commitment to revive the country's fallen economy by providing relief to the people who are suffering from the high cost of living burden.
The progress review meeting of the Food Security District Program was held at the Nuwareliya Town Hall yesterday under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
විශාල කොටසක් අද අමාරුවෙන් ජීවත් වෙන්නේ. ඒ විඳින දුක මම අමතක කරලා නැහැ. කොහොමද මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ විසඳ ගන්න තියෙනවා. විසඳගත්තාම මම බලාපොරොත්තුව තියෙන්නේ මේ එන අවුරුද්ද 2023 දී මීට වඩා විශාල සහනයක් ජනතාවට ලබා දෙන්න. මේ ආහාර සුරක්ෂිතභාවය වැඩසටහන අපි දේශපාලනයෙන් තොරව ගෙනියනවා. අපේ ආර්ථිකය කඩාවැටීමත් මීට ඉස්සෙල්ලා සිදු නොවුන එක. ඒ නිසා ආර්ථිකය කඩාවැටීමේ ආර්ථිකය ගොඩ ගන්න එකත් අපි දේශපාලනයෙන් තොර වැඩ කරන්න ඕනේ. මම ජනාධිපති වුණායින් පස්සේ කිසි දවසක දේශපාලනයක් හැටියට ක්‍රියා කළා නැහැ. ඒත් ඉන්නවා සමහරු තාම හිතන්නේ පරණ විදියට. පරණ විදියට දේශපාලනය කරන්නේ. මේ ඔක්කොම වගකීම ආණ්ඩුවේ දැම්මොත් ඊළඟ සැරේ බලය ඇති වෙයි කියලා. මම හිතන්නේ ඒක සාර්ථක වෙයි කියලා. මිනිස්සු අද දොස් කියන්නේ මේ ආණ්ඩුවට විතරක් නෙමෙයි. ඔය 225ටම කියනවා. සැලසුමක් ඇතුව එන්න ඕනේ. සැලසුමක් නැතුව දොස් කියලා වැඩක් නැහැ. ඒ දොස් කියන එකෙන් විසඳුමක් එන්නේ නැහැ. අද මේ මුළු පාර්ලිමේන්තුව නෙමෙයි මේ මුළු දේශපාලන ක්‍රමයම එපා වෙලා තියෙනවා. අවුරුදු 75ක් ගිහින් මේ වැටුණ එකට අපි ඔක්කොම කියන්න ඕන කියලා කියනවා. ඉතින් එක කණ්ඩායමකට විතරක් විවේචනය කළා බේරෙන්න නැහැ. Tamanට දේශපාලන අනාගතයක් නැහැ. තරුණයා අද දේශපාලනයෙන් ඈත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. එයාගේ විශ්වාසය දිනා ගන්න නම් අපි ඔක්කොම එකට වැඩ කරන්න ඕන. සමහර තරුණියෝ වැඩිහිටියා රට අතහැරලා යනවා. ක්‍රමේ වෙනස් කරන්න බැරි නිසා Taman පිට වෙලා යනවා. ඒක අපි ඔක්කොම දැනගන්න දේශපාලන. ඒ ක්‍රමවේදය මාරු කරන්න ඕනේ. මේ රට ගොඩ ගත්තාම හොඳ අනාගතයක්, හොඳ ශක්තිමත් ආර්ථිකයක් ඇති කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒකේ මූලික කාර්යය තමයි හැම එක්කනම ජීවත් වෙන්න ආහාර ලබා දෙන්න. දැන් මට කියනවා ගෙදර යන්න කියලා. මට ඒක ප්‍රශ්නයයි තියෙන්නේ. ගෙදර ගිනි තිබෙන නිසා යන්න තැනක් නැහැ. ඉතින් මෙතන ඉඳන් රට ගොඩ ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒකයි කරන්නේ.
The Minister of Justice, Dr. Vijay Das Rajapaksa, says he will propose the establishment of a procurement commission and a national audit commission to probe corruptions that occur in the procurement procedures conducted by state institutions and to ensure that future procurements are conducted free of corruption. Addressing a media briefing today, he also said that the draft bill for the new anti-corruption law will be presented in Parliament next month.
To prevent corruptions and bribery that we are going to enact laws. We have already enacted a series of laws. With the enactment of 21st Amendment, we are going to give an assurance that all the government commissions, institutions, the public service can work independently. In addition to that, we are going to introduce to set up Procurement Commission and National Audit Commission, whereas the most of the corruption take place in the process of procurements of the public sector. We have already drafted the anti-corruption law that is keeping in the norms and principles recognized in the UN Charter of Anti-Corruption. I hope that I will be able to present this to the Parliament in the coming month. In addition to that, we have presented the campaign finance bill that is to restrict the expenditures by the candidates in elections, in all elections, and also thereby to give an assurance that the people will get a chance to elect educated and responsible people who can lead this country towards the proper direction. And we have revised more than 21 laws which are directly relevant to the upholding of the rule of law in this country. The regulations made under the Prisons Ordinance, which was in existence since 1934, which were made during the colonial period, the big change in the last month. With that one, that we are going to revamp the entire prison system, and also we are going to do the better justice to the prisoners who had been detained with many illness, sometimes elderly and feeble people. We are trying to do something before the next Independent Day, at least to a particular group of people who are having terminal illness and many other diseases.
There seems to be an ice epidemic brewing in Sri Lanka. What is the government going to do about that?
Now it was made a law as a prohibited substance with effect from 25th of last month. Now there are certain, rates. We have already apprehended 235 kilos by now. And also we have made provisions once we apprehend this kind of substances while keeping a small quantity which is required for the purpose of the proving the case. some sample, the judges are empowered to destroy then and there.
What about how it's being got into the country?
We'll implement the law. If anybody is having possession over 5 grams, the penalty is death penalty or life sentence.
Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe has issued a special Gazette notification amending the portfolios of 8 ministries. According to the Gazette, the amendments went into effect from yesterday. As per the Gazette, the Multipurpose Development Task Force Department, which was under the purview of the Ministry of Defence, has been listed under the Ministry of Public Administration, Home Affairs, Provincial Councils and Local Government. Meanwhile, the Kidney Fund, which was removed from the portfolio of the Ministry of Women, Child Affairs and Social Empowerment, has now been gazetted under the Ministry of Health. The Vedanta centres, which were under the purview of the Ministry of Education, will now function under the Ministry of Industries. Further, the Ministry of Agriculture has been assigned to overseas regional economic centres and broadening of the market for local farm products. These were previously gazetted under the Ministry of Trade, Commerce and Food Security. Meanwhile, Anti-Dumping and Countervailing Duties No. 2 of 2018 and Safeguard Measures Act No. 3 of 2018 have been gazetted under the Ministry of Trade, Commerce and Food Security. Now, oil prices rise by over 2% on expectations of a drop in Russian crude supply. More news on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
It's hard to keep up with the new when you're listening to the same old Slim Brand Week, a week for professionals.
Welcome back. Now, the US Embassy announced that the USAID has launched a new project that aims to reduce the environmental plastics in Sri Lanka and the Maldives through the integration of solid waste management practices. The United States Agency for International Development announced the official launch of a planned 5-year project in Sri Lanka and the Maldives to reduce environmental plastics. They intend on doing this by reducing the use of industrial plastic and improvising integrated solid waste management practices in Sri Lanka and the Maldives. The project's overall goal is to increase participation in solid waste management and reduction programs, preventing thousands of tons of plastic from leaking into the environment. USAID's Mission Director for Sri Lanka and the Maldives, Gabe Grau, said that combining plastic pollution will reduce threats to marine ecosystems and livelihoods, food security, and ultimately human health. Ocean plastic pollution threatens the world's delicate marine ecosystems and fishing and tourism sectors, food security, and human health. The equivalent of an entire garbage truck of plastic makes its way into the world's oceans every minute, roughly 11 tons annually. The majority of plastic ocean debris comes from rapidly growing cities along coastal areas in the developing world, where governments struggle with growing populations and increasing amounts of waste. Sri Lanka and the Maldives face unique challenges in waste management. In Sri Lanka, the country's solid waste management systems struggle to keep with growing urban populations. In the meantime, the Maldives, an archipelago of 1,200 coral islands, has extremely limited amounts of land to store waste and is overwhelmed by managing both domestic waste and marine debris carried in by ocean currents from other countries. Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe appointed General Shantha Kottegowda as the new Chancellor of the Sir General John Kutalavala Defence University for a period of 5 years. Accordingly, General Kottegowda will replace the outgoing Chancellor, General Gerard Hector de Silva. General Kottegowda served as the Defence Secretary from April 2019 until November 2019. A veteran in military service for 35 years, General Kottegowda commanded the Sri Lanka Army from July 2004 until December 2005. He has also served as Sri Lankan Ambassador to Brazil and thereafter as the Sri Lankan Ambassador to Thailand. On the Colombo Bourse today, Sri Lankan shares fell for the 7th straight session as investors awaited direction on the economic front. The all share price index closed 0.20% low at 8,379.95. The more liquid index S&P SL20 closed 0.72% or 19.10 points lower at 2,623.70. The market meanwhile witnessed a turnover of 1.1 billion rupees, half of this year's daily average turnover of 2.9 billion rupees. The market saw a net foreign inflow of 39 million rupees, and the total net foreign inflow stood at 31 billion rupees so far for this year. So far in December, the SPI has lost 3.1%. Expo Lanka pulled down the index to close at 5.2%, low at 183 rupees. Meanwhile, Lanka IOC fell 1.7% to close at 204 rupees and 8 cents, and Richard Peary's closed 2% at 23 rupees and 5 cents a share. Now let's take a look at how the rupee fared against other major currencies in the world. Now, oil prices rose by more than 2% today on expectations of a drop in Russian crude supply, which helped offset worries of a hit to US transport fuel demand growth as looming Arctic storm threatens travel during the holiday season. Brent crude was up by $2.10 to $82.70 a barrel, while US West Texas Intermediate crude was at $79.37 a barrel, up by 2.37%. Both contracts were up by more than $2 per barrel earlier today and on track to post their second weekly gain. It is said that Russia's Baltic oil exports could fall by 20% in December from the previous month after the European Union and G7 nations imposed sanctions and a price cap on Russian crude from the 5th of December. The RIA news agency cited Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak as saying today that Russia may cut oil output by 5% to 7% in early 2023's number 2 oil consumer, China. Concerns about further rate hikes globally and recession curbing fuel consumption limited oil's price gains. Now, Colombo Stars scored 163 runs for the loss of 5 wickets in the final of the third edition of the Lanka Premier League. Winning the toss, Jaffna Kings invited Colombo Stars to bat first in the R. Premadasa Stadium. Nishan Madhushanka and Dinesh Chandimal opened the innings for Colombo Stars. However, they were unable to get a good start as Madhushanka lost his wicket for a delivery of Jaffna Kings skipper Thisara Pereira in the first over of the game. Chandimal, pairing up with one down, Charit Asalanka managed to set 76 runs for the first wicket partnership, boosting the innings for Colombo Stars. Asalanka scored 31 runs before his dismissal. Chandimal at 49 runs faced an unfortunate dismissal while running between wickets. Skipper Angelo Matthews was bowled out by Mahesh Theekshana for 12 runs. Ravi Bopara meanwhile remained unbeaten at a score of 47 runs. The former head coach of Sri Lanka, Mickey Arthur, says that the Lanka Premier League will have a massive impact on the future of Sri Lanka cricket, adding that several young players with outstanding performances have been already identified throughout the tournament. Speaking to AdaDerana English News, Arthur also said that young players of Sri Lanka can make a chance in Sri Lanka cricket and change in international exposure as they get during the Premier League will make them even better.
I think the LPL will have a massive impact on Sri Lankan cricket for the simple reason it allows young players out of the club's system to rub shoulders with the best Sri Lankan players, the best international Sri Lankan players, and also overseas players, but also allow them a platform to perform under pressure because, you know, they're live on television, there's a lot at stake. And those are experiences that you can't replicate in training and that. You have to go through it. So it fast tracks a lot of the young players in terms of their development in that regard. And I do think there's some really good young players. We saw Walalagay at Jaffna, Siobhan Daniel with us, Chamindu Wickramasinghe that was with us. We've looked at Nuwan Tassara, who's been around and has got better and better. Vieskan from Jaffna. So there are a lot of young players that are taking these opportunities with both hands and certainly making a name for themselves, which is great to see. And again, that's exactly what you want from a Premier League in your own country. The future of Sri Lanka is always good, because you look at the young players coming through the system and there's just a lot of raw talent. There's a lot of raw talent, there's a lot of skill, and it's just making them better players, making them rounded players, making them understand a little bit more in terms of field settings, etc. But the skill's there, and that's what Sri Lanka always does, is provides the world with some very skillful cricketers.
Do you think these young players can make a change?
Yeah, I think they can, without a doubt. And I think playing in something like the Lanka Premier League and then getting some international exposure, they'll just get better and better and better, which will be very, very good for Sri Lankan cricket.
And before we wrap up tonight's edition of First to Nine, we bring you our special Christmas segment, The Message of Hope.
Christ brings eternal light to all mankind. The scriptures tell us that darkness could not overcome that eternal light. This is good news. Good news to the people who live in darkness. We who live in Sri Lanka have gone through a time of darkness. Power cuts have been there. Political instability. Our country has become a bankrupt country. We see a lot of wickedness and evil taking place, which brings insecurity and uncertainty to our lives. And we feel that we are in the midst of darkness. That is the very moment that we need to understand the birth and the meaning of Christ. He brings life. He brings light. He brings joy and peace to everyone. And that means the power of darkness cannot overcome the one who experiences the light of Christ. Whether it be our sin, the wickedness and the evil that is around us, or the political instability, economic breakdown, or any other matter that makes us feel that we are passing through a time of darkness, could be there, but it has no power to overcome those who receive the light.
Again tomorrow for the very latest news at the very same time. Have a pleasant evening and good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.